Good morning, everyone. We have our body of Christ. Our CCP members is framed and ready to go up. So I just wanted to share that with you all, and we're going to get started.
Okay. As soon as Andy gets back, we will get started.
Your song sheets are found on your tables. And we're going to kick us off with our opening song. Just one last time. Bring that
Okay. Thank you all for again being here with us, and so excited to have this sixth session of our series. Have to say a word of thanks to Andy. Incredible music, not only for our sessions throughout the year, and especially this week, all the incredible music during Holy Week. So, Andy, you're incredible. All right, let's do it.
I saw you got sense
We are all one body, and the gifts we have, we are given to share. May the Spirit of love make us one indeed. Servants true, let us be your love to all the world. We are many parts, we are all one body, and the gifts we have, we are given to share. May the Spirit of love make us one indeed. On the love that we share, on our hope and despair, on the cross that we bear. So my pain is paid for you, in your joy is my joy too. All is brought together in the Lord. We are many parts, we are all one body, and the gifts we have, we are given to share. May the Spirit of love make us one indeed. On the love that we share, on our hope and despair, on the cross that we bear. Holy seekers great and small, seek the greatest gift of all. If you love Him, you will know the Lord. We
Good morning again. Somehow I got picked to lead this session, so, a couple of things going on. This really came out well. Thank you to all of you that participated in this session. We gotta find a place to hang it up someplace, but we'll take care of that. Okay, so today, the topic for today is, stand in front of the microphone, right? So the topic for the day is, how do we become a welcoming committee and keep ourselves safe at the same time? One of the things that came up in our one-on-one interviews with some people was the fact that, there's a lot of threats in the world today. So, there's several things going on in this area that we're starting to do. First thing is, our world isn't as simple as it once was, okay? So, as Mark said in the gospel this morning, why are you doing this? Well, we're doing it because of that. Our world is changing. We've, again, had some people express concerns. So there's some things that are going on. One of the things is, Phil Goodman's brother is basically junior warden and more at a Presbyterian church over in Old Westminster. And they went through the process of getting a grant from FEMA to make their church more secure, because they've got some high threat kind of people that meet at their church. And they actually successfully achieved the grant and have done a lot of things to make their church a little bit more safe. If you look around our place, I mean, it was built in the 60s, with these doors over here, for example. Those could be breached fairly easily. So we invited Arvada Police, Bob Nicholson helped with that, get Arvada Police out here, and then as part of the grant, we actually had people from Homeland Security come out and talk to us and walk through our church and look around. And that ended up being about a 17-page report. And on page 2, they list 4 things that we do extremely well. The next 11 pages are things we should improve. So Phil Goodman has been taking that and beginning to write a grant proposal. Now this includes everything from beefing up the doors to a lot of things we can do for free, which are things like training our staff, training our ushers, knowing what to look for, establishing communication and or relationships with local first responders. They actually asked, they said, open up your kitchen, or have the police stop by for coffee and a donut. So they get to know our facility, they get to know that we're here, because we're pretty much a drive-by church, guys. People go by on car out here and we're not really noticeable. So anyway, there are some things in there that we can do that we're looking at. And this grant proposal is going to be ongoing through the summer. Right now, because it's government, the money hasn't even been approved for it, but Phil's progressing like it should, like he thinks it will be. And the other night we were talking, I believe, Kathy, you said best case is probably November before anything happens. Phil's nodding. So this isn't a done deal, it isn't a sure thing, but it's something that we can look at and try for. So that's one of the things we're working on right now. Excuse me. Some of the things that they've asked for as far as areas of improvement are, again, new doors. We've already got that on the old chapel. The doors up there, those are one of the things that they liked, okay? That was on page 2, the 4 things they liked. With crash bars on the doors and stuff, the way we implemented that, they said it was perfect. So if we do replace these, we'll want to do some of the same stuff. Some of the things that they pointed out to us are fairly easy to fix or fairly cheap to fix. Others may require a little bit more money. They're talking about lighting improvements in the parking lots. Our Soviet era light up there on the old parking lot. We're probably looking at how to replace that with something that's more energy efficient, as well as on a timer, because that one has to be manually switched on and off. Things like that, easy things to fix. Installation of a CCTV system around the premises and for the doorbell. I mean, most days, Jessica's here by herself, people ring the doorbell, she walks out there and lets them in. If she could see who was there on a video monitor before she goes out there, that's a plus. Better communication again with first responders, and like I said, training of our staff and of our congregation. So we've even had the Arvada Police volunteered to come over and do safety talks for us. So that's something we may look at for future, Saturday program or something, or maybe do a potluck, something like that, have them come in after coffee hour. So those are things that we're talking about. And I'm kind of stalling right now because our guest for this morning isn't here yet. But, Patty, yeah. Kathy.
Well, I have a question, or a suggestion. I don't know if we do, like, how you do a fire drill, if we would do an active shooter or any kind of scary person.
So-
Our little four-year-old grandson was in pre-K, and he was saying that they had a fire drill, and we were talking to him, and he goes, and we also have bad man drills.
Have what?
Just bad man drills.
Yeah.
Which may be, so heartbreaking, even 4 years old to say that, but it may be a good idea. I mean, I know this exit, but I don't know, you know some of them, but
Right.
when, if you're in a situation, everyone's kind of half panicked, and it might be good to have a drill.
So to summarize the question is, should we have fire drills, active shooter drills, evacuation drills? All of those are in the 11 pages of recommendations. So, and again, those are things, and those are the kinds of things I'm talking about we can do for free. It falls under that training aspect of just knowing where we are in the building, where the nearest exit is, simple things like that, that we can do going forward. So, if somebody wants to look over the report, I've got one copy of it, I'd like to get it back, but it's called Safe Security Assessment at First Entry, and it was provided by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is part of Homeland Security. And those people, they were serious. They were out here and they really looked us over and gave us some good things to think about. So, and things that you wouldn't even think about. For instance, if you look at our chapel doors, our nave doors, you got 2 handles there. And they say, get rid of one of those. And you wonder why. Well, you wonder why because somebody can come in and chain those shut and you're trapped in that nave. There are 2 egress doors in there, but those are the kinds of things, that's why they like the single crash bar on the upstairs door. There's only one side of the door that opens up unless you unlock the other side. So just things that you wouldn't think about, I wouldn't think about in a normal day. These guys point out, and it's like they think about this stuff. Okay.
We're gonna shift.
Sorry?
We're gonna shift.
Oh, we're gonna shift, okay. Are you gonna? Okay, cool. Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, that's on video. Oh, no, I'm gonna just give them.
Oh, okay.
So on your handouts for today, we did have some pointers from Shaniko Brokenleg on how to be welcoming. And we're gonna have an opportunity to have a little bit of Q&A after Brianna speaks today, when you can ask some questions about that same subject. But Shaniko said some things we can do to help people feel welcome, invited, and included. Leave the building, go out into the community. It can be difficult for people who've been hurt by church to trust and come inside. Offer an annual Transgender Day of Remembrance service. That's something that cities often do, churches often do them as well. And that's something we could do to lament the harm done in the past. Check gendered language, sibling rather than brothers and sisters. Invitations, use gender neutral language, partner or spouse. Ask people their pronouns, don't assume. Be intentional about putting up symbols, rainbows, star quilts. And Jessica has actually quilted us a star quilt. Is she in here somewhere?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll get to show that off here sometime soon. But she showed me the front part of it. It's gorgeous, and I'm looking forward to showing you all. Ask individuals who are queer to come walk around the church to look for anything that would not signal welcoming. So you have some folks right here in our community that we might invite to be a part of that walkthrough and to give us a little report back. Celebrate LGBTQIA plus saints. Polly Murray is one that's very easy for us to celebrate. She even has a day in our lesser feasts and fasts. Offer or conduct name change services or celebrations. Send out an invitation to the community to indicate that we could celebrate committed relationships with CTK members, friends, and family members. Make porous boundaries to invite people in. And what that means, she meant invite people to a social event first before inviting folks to liturgy. So like a barbecue or movie night, and then perhaps evening prayer, and then finally a Sunday service. Starting out by building relationships and getting to know people so that they feel like it's not a strange and unwelcoming place if they walk into the sanctuary. Start from an understanding and belief that we are all made in the image of God. So God is all colors, all genders, all ages, all abilities, body shapes, and more. As we experience the diversity of the kingdom, we experience the fullness of God. And always be transformed, always be changed through the love and power of God in the Eucharist and in and through each other. And those are our suggestions from Shaniqua Brokenland. We saw Shaniqua a couple of weeks in a row on the videos, and she's also a member of the presiding bishop's staff working on helping folks find inclusion and equality and good things. I am going to give the brief bio for Brianna, hoping that she'll be here to join us shortly. State Representative Brianna Titone is Colorado's first transgender lawmaker. She represents Colorado House District 27. Brianna has always felt compelled to serve her community. She knows that serving as the state representative for House District 27 is the best way to do this. As a society, we have been drifting apart and settling in our political boxes. We tend to dismiss people too quickly because of political affiliation, age, economic circumstance, religion, skin color, gender identity, sexuality, etc. Brianna believes that there are many things that we can find in common with each other, and around that intersectionality, we will come together and build a better sense of community. Instead of isolating ourselves, we will become better neighbors and friends. We are all in this together. Brianna serves as chair of the Legislative LGBTQ+ Caucus, chair of the Joint Technology Committee, and as a member of the Energy and Environment, Health and Insurance and Agriculture, Livestock and Water Committees. And is she in the building?
Yeah.
She is, fabulous.
So, whenever you're ready.
We are ready, she is introduced.
Okay.
And she is proof of what Patrice's shirt says today, that a woman's house, the places in the House as well as the Senate.
All right.
You have been introduced.
And here I am. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate the offer to be in front of you and to give you the opportunity to hear some of my perspectives. And I'll definitely take some time to have some questions asked of me, and I will give you my honest responses. I'm very upfront about the things that I have to go through, and whatever you have a question for, I am happy to answer. So I'm Representative Tone. I used to represent this area, but now I represent northern Arvada from roughly 72nd to 88th all the way out to the mountains, all the mountains of Jeffco north of I-70, and thought it was loud. And Golden and Applewood. So that's my new district as of 2022, and it'll be moving forward. And I only have one more election left. So after this November and my last 2 years, I'll have to figure out what else I'm going to do.
Senate.
If the Senate is open, so we'll have to see where the cards fall. But you've invited me here today to talk a little bit about my experience being a trans person in the legislature, and it's been an interesting one because when I was first elected in 2018, House District 27 was a pretty Republican district, and it had always been that way. So when I ran, it was not expected for me to win because I was a Democrat, not because I was a trans person, but that did not help either. So there wasn't a high expectation of me getting to the legislature to begin with. And then once I got there, it was kind of, and this happens to a lot of trans people in workplaces anywhere, when you're the only person who's like that, to try to get people to understand and feel comfortable and just kind of, it's a very strange thing to happen when you're in a place where you're the only person who's like you. And there a lot of minority folks feel that way when they enter certain spaces, and because of that, you have to kind of be a little bit on your toes, and you have to be a little bit hyper aware, and you have to code switch a lot. And code switching is kind of, knowing who your audience is and making sure that you're talking to people in the right way, because you can create a hostile environment if you're not careful in how you speak to some people. And so a little bit about my history and how I came out as being trans. I mean, I've always felt I was a bit different even when I was like 7, 8 years old, but I didn't know how to express that. I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the internet. The library was not down the street from me. I was several miles away, and I couldn't ride my bike there. It was too dangerous to drive down my road on a bike. But I was just afraid of understanding myself, because I knew from my observations around me that even people who were gay or suspected to be gay, even that was frowned upon. And when I looked at the media and I saw the portrayals of LGBT people in general, it was often a joke, and especially trans people were a joke. I remember very vividly the movie Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. If you remember that one, and if you haven't watched it, spoiler alert, there's a trans person who was revealed at the end, and there's a visceral reaction that is not good about this person being trans. And watching that as a teenager was, I was with other people and I had to laugh with them to cover how I felt inside, because I didn't want them to say, well, why aren't you laughing? And then have that give away. So there was a lot of struggle that I had in my life just around this kind of topic of being very careful about what I talked about, what I learned about, and if people saw that I was learning about the LGBT community, would I give myself away? If I didn't laugh at the jokes, would I give myself away? So there was a lot of internal struggle, because I had to have this cover story about me being a person who I wasn't. So it was a really difficult upbringing. This is true for a lot of people, and you've probably seen and noticed in a few instances that there are people who are very anti-LGBT, and there have been many instances where it turns out that they are actually, have those kinds of feelings too, and they use that animosity against the community to cover the shame that they feel about being somebody who the community around them is saying is bad. But this is kind of a manufactured way of looking at the LGBT community. And throughout history, if you go way back, a couple thousand years ago, into some of the more ancient times, and even in the early time in history, being LGBT, gay, queer, it was a lot more acceptable. And then there was a shift, and it was within the religious communities where they wanted to not have this be part of society. And if you look back at some of the older texts, and I'm not a scholar of of the Bible, or really history in that respect, I'll just be honest with you, but from what little bits and pieces that I learned, and I would like to really learn a little bit more about this, because I think it's important for me to be able to talk about this in a more detailed and confident way to you all and to other people. But this is happening, and this has happened, that people did not want people to be LGBT. In our country here, when Western civilization arrived and the Native American people had a very open two-spirit community. And that's basically trans community. They're people who exist in both male and female form. And this is something that the Western culture and the Christian culture that did not want that to be part of that really put a damper on that and really tried to push that underground. And that is a real big cultural problem for the Native folks who revere this kind of thing. And they weren't allowed to be able to be who they were. So this is kind of been going on for a long time, people existing who they are, but there has been that cultural shift that has happened over time. And so for me, I've said this before to a lot of the people, when I was a teenager, when I was in college, I would wear women's undergarments because that's the only thing I could do to express myself, but I couldn't do it openly. So I was always very afraid of being discovered if I had a car accident. Well, how am I going to explain that? So there were a lot of things where I was very nervous, and I was always very hyper-vigilant, and I was always looking around to make sure that my clothes were on correctly and nothing was showing. And so I became a very hyper-vigilant person in general. So when I started to get into politics, and how I got into politics is a little bit of a roundabout way, because I'm a geochemist, worked in the mining industry. But when I'm from New York originally, and I grew up in pretty close to New York City, but not in New York. But a lot of the students that were in the college that I went to were from New York, and we watched the Twin Towers, that disaster and that attack happened. And I was a volunteer firefighter at the time, and I had a lot of patriotic feelings about wanting to do something to stop this from happening again. So joining the military was not something I felt really comfortable doing, because they own you and they can search everything that you have, and I didn't want them to find anything that might be in my footlocker, which would have been really hard for me, because that was part of my identity, that I was expressing myself. So I thought that maybe I could join the FBI. And that's what I got my education, I got some work experience, and then tried to get into the FBI. When I came out here to Colorado, I got through the process. I was considered to be most competitive in the candidates, and I was hiding who I was from them, too. And I don't know if the polygraph would have picked up on that or not. That's up for debate. I never got to that because I got too old to finish that process. So I got into activism when I came out as being trans, because I was part of a community that needed help and support. And if I was going to put my life on the line to do this job as an FBI agent, I was going to put myself out there to stand up for the community I belong to. That ended up leading to politics. It was not something I planned on doing, but having the sense of wanting to do something for the community and making the world a better place, that has always been the number one driving force in my life. And I'm really glad that I'm here to be able to do this work, because I am doing a lot of work that a lot of people couldn't get done before I came along. And I've had a bunch of first-in-the-nation policies that are on the forefront of spreading around to other states that are trying to accomplish the same things that I have. But I was a long lead-in. But now that once I got into the Capitol, I was looked on as somebody who was an outsider. I was hooked on to somebody who they didn't understand, that they didn't quite get. And it was always an uphill battle for me. I had to work twice as hard. I had to work 5 times as hard to get elected than a normal candidate. And then I had to work 2 or 3 times harder than everybody else in the legislature just to prove that I was worthy to be there. And I had to kind of play that game and, avoid certain places where I knew I wouldn't be welcome. This is kind of an interesting thing. So in my first election, my opponent was a Mormon woman. You probably remember who that was. And I was like, oh no, the Mormon church is going to hate me. And some of their policies are open about not accepting trans people. So I kind of wrote off a whole group of people because, well, the candidate is a Mormon woman too, and so everybody there must not like me, but it turned out that wasn't really the case. And I do have to put myself in vulnerable positions with people who could be potentially hostile with me to try to understand where they're coming from. And as somebody who is the marginalized person, who is the person who is being oppressed in a lot of times, in a lot of cases, and if I go to other states and use a bathroom, I could be arrested for it. This is the reality that I live in. So there's some states I can't go to. But I have to understand where people are coming from to understand there's a lot of questions. It's like people understand gay and lesbian, and it kind of makes sense. This is something a lot more easily to digest. But somebody who doesn't feel comfortable being their gender is something that it's a foreign thing. I mean, your brains work normally, I guess, and my brain doesn't quite work in that way, and I feel more comfortable being who I am in the body that I'm in as I have presented it to be. So that's always been a difficult thing to try to get people to understand, and I don't expect all of you here to quite understand that, because you are not in the mind of a trans person, and that's okay. But what we as trans people are really trying to do is just to get you to understand that there's nothing wrong with who we are, because fundamentally, we are all just human beings trying to do our part and to play our role in our families, in our companies, in our communities, maybe in our church, and these are things that we all share, and we all have these goals. So back to the Mormon church, they asked me to help them advertise a charity drive that they were doing. And I said, sure, I'll post that out for you. And so they were getting menstrual products for people who needed it, and they invited me down to come see all the stuff that they got, because they were really successful because I helped them get the word out. And I was kind of terrified to go down there because I had just run against the Mormon lady a second time. And I still wasn't sure what their motivation was. But I went and I put myself in a place where I felt very vulnerable. But once I got to talk to the leadership in the church, and they said, what's your motivation? What drives you? And I told them, I'm here for the community. I've always been there. I've been doing community service since I was 16 when I was a volunteer firefighter. This is what drives me. I think everyone should do something for the community. If everybody just did a couple hours of work, all of our communities would be such much wonderful places. And after our conversation, he said, I had a very different impression of who you were before I actually met you. And I can see now that we've had a chance to talk in person that we're so much alike in what we want and what we're driven to do. And that was the first time that I felt welcome in that space, because I didn't even give them the chance before that, because I had a preconceived notion. And that's what a lot of people have about trans people, is a preconceived notion. The things that they hear, the labels that are used to describe trans people, especially in the Capitol and on social media, are just to make people afraid of a group of people. I'm compared. Well, I was called someone in a cult by my colleagues. I was called a pedophile. I was called a deviant. I mean, I was called all sorts of things. I mean, this is just completely unfounded. Have I ever been convicted or accused or questioned or anything about any of those things? No. Never. Ever in my life have I ever, or most trans people ever, considered that. But it's an easy label to make about a group of people that you don't know and you don't understand. So putting these labels on people is a way of creating a hostile environment for a group of people that you're trying to use as a political tool to get what you want. And now the big thing that they're trying to do, because I don't know if you remember back in 2016, North Carolina, they tried to do the bathroom ban. And a lot of companies stood up and said, "What is this? Don't do this. We're going to leave your state." And it was a very proud moment to see that those companies were going to do the right thing and step up and say, "This is wrong, and we're not going to stand for this." And in a short time since then, these bathroom bans are passing all over the place now. Utah, Florida, Alabama just did one for college students. So no college student's going to want to go to Alabama if they're trans. They won't be able to use it. They could get arrested in a bathroom if they want to use it. And really, like, if I walk into a men's room and you're in there, what's your reaction going to be if you're in there? Like, are you in the wrong room? And this is true for a lot of people. And if you've ever met a trans man, you probably would say that would be scary for a woman to see a trans man in a woman's bathroom. But these are the kinds of things that are happening. The thing that they have shifted to from the bathroom stuff is to the sports thing. And saying that trans women, they don't never bring up trans men in sports, but it's trans women in sports, because this argument that's a gateway, it's a foot in the door, to say, we're trying to protect women, and we're trying to protect women's scholarships, and we're trying to protect the trophies and all the things that women have fought so hard to get. And, you know, if you go back just a few years, who cared about women's sports? Where were all these people then, when the inequity in women's sports has been completely off the charts, where you walk into a college locker room for men's sports and it's got like gold finishing, and then you go into the women's locker room in a college and it smells like mold and it's got, you know, rusty lockers and stuff. And that's absolutely the reality of it. We haven't cared about that. But now we care about it because trans people are a threat to all of this. Trans people are not dominating in sports. There are a lot of rules in it. And if you look at what's happening with I mean, there are a lot of cisgender women. And, you know, cisgender is the person you are as you're born. You are not a trans person. It's actually a scientific term, cis and trans. It's kind of the opposite. If you're a cis woman, you may have more testosterone in your system because that's just the way your body works. And there have been plenty of times where women in sports dominate in sports, and it turns out that they have more testosterone in their system, and that gives them an advantage over everybody else. In Olympics, in college sports, competitive sports, cisgender women have been barred from participating because they had too much testosterone in their system, and they weren't doping. It's just the way they are. And it's to keep the competitiveness on par with everybody else, to take the women who have high testosterone out of the competition. This is how it works. So it's very blown out of proportion. And I have to really take a lot of time to get people to understand and see the perspective of it, and to understand the science of it, that every human being has a little bit different biochemical makeup to them. And it all is based on what it was in their body that they were born with, and that's in their DNA. That's just how they are. And it's not just this bucket and this bucket, which is what everybody wants to try to do now, is define what men and women are in statute, which is very, very dangerous, because it's not only trying to bar trans. You've heard of hermaphrodites. These are people who are born with both genitalia oftentimes. And where do they fit into this? Where do you fit in if you have a different chromosomal makeup? When they're saying, we need to do a DNA test on you to look at your chromosomes and see what bucket you fall in. Well, if they start doing that with everybody, they're going to find that there's quite a bit difference than just XX and XY. If they read some scientific journals and did a little research, they would be pretty apparent. But that's not what they want to do. They want this idea that everybody needs to conform to these different buckets. So I have had very, very vulnerable conversations with a lot of my colleagues about this kind of thing, trying to get them to understand, offering them information, offering them time to sit with me. Now, because I make that generous offer to a lot of people, I have gotten some offers to talk to some people who I do not want to talk to. And there's an influencer, and he does a lot of things that are anti-trans in a lot of these videos and things that he does. And I'll tell you that the anti-trans movement is not just about politics, it's about making money. And people make money off of creating this environment of fear against trans people. And it's not an exaggeration. This one guy, I don't even want to mention their names because I don't want to glorify their names. But this guy, YouTube banned his ad account from making money anymore. And he said, I can't believe this. I was making $100,000 a month on ads, and now I can't do it. $100,000 a month of revenue on ads, spreading fear about a group of people. No wonder why people want to continue to spread these lies. If you can profit on it and throw a group of people under the bus that you don't care about or have any association with, why not? It's ludicrous that this is happening, and the worst part is that they're making money on this, and they're actually making real people's lives really difficult, and taking away health care, and taking away the ability to freely just go to the bathroom without being harassed. And people are making money off of this. But this other guy that makes these videos, they contacted me and several other trans people who have some name recognition and asked us to be part of a documentary, but did not say who it was that was asking. And I get asked by a lot of people to be interviewed for a college paper or for a news article or our high school students doing a report. I get asked by lots and lots of people to participate in lots and lots of different things. And I always try to say yes if I'm available to do it, because I'm a visible person. I want people to hear what I have to say. But not a person who's going to take my clip and chop it up and use it in a negative way, which I knew this guy was going to do. But he didn't say who it was. He said there was an award-winning director who wants to do this interview. And I was tipped off by somebody else who said this was happening, that this transphobic guy who's making all this money is luring people in under false pretenses to participate. And so I said, sorry, I don't want to do your interview. And so he called me on the phone out of the blue. My number's out there. It's not that difficult to find. And so he said, hello, is this Representative Tone? And I said, yeah, who's calling? Well, this is, I won't even say anything. And I'm like, no, sorry, I'm not interested. Have a good day. And he said, wait. But you said you want to talk to people you disagree with. And now you're saying no to me? And I said, I'm not going to talk to somebody who's making profits off of people like me's misery. And that's exactly what you're going to do. And you're probably recording this call, so I'm going to hang up now. And he put that in his film, his hate film. Except for the part where I told him he was recording the call, which it was legal to do in his state and our state. So then he puts this in this film and he's making all sorts of money on that. So there's certain people that I have to be afraid of now. And I have to be careful about who I talk to. And how I'm recorded. And what I say. Because there are people out there who want me to say something that they're going to take, they're going to spin, and they're going to put in a film to defame me. And it's totally legal to do under the First Amendment because I'm a public official. And I have no way of getting someone liable. So being somebody who's in a position like mine, who's very visible, is very challenging for me because I'm on Twitter. I was actually doing really well on Twitter. I had almost 10,000 followers before it was bought and turned into a cesspool. And now I don't even want to post on there anymore because I post something and somebody just says negative things. The Speaker of the House in Colorado posted a photo of the leadership team, which I am on. I'm one of the caucus co-chairs of Democratic House leadership. And a bunch of people for International Women's Day. And hundreds of people just had to just make a comment that that one picture has a man in it. Just because they like to bully people, and it's ingrained in them to do it. And this is the kind of stuff that I have to deal with all the time. It's like, oh, I have to go onto Twitter and just clear all the notifications and report the things that are bad if they actually do anything about it anymore. But this is the kind of stuff that I have. And I just got an email yesterday. Somebody said, he's with one of the churches, I don't know which one. He said, we're doing some praying for our elected officials. How would you like for me to pray for you? And I said, and I said this also to someone else who came into my office too and asked me the same question. I said, I'd like you to pray for my safety and people like me. Because there's so many people spreading so many things that are just misinformation and labeling us as dangerous people that my safety is at risk, especially in certain places where I go. And there's some places that I won't go, and there's some places where I want someone to be with me to make sure that there's a witness around, that they can see what happened. And this is the real reality we're in. And I heard a quote recently about, it takes courage to stand up. For me, it takes bravery, I suppose. You know, there's like real threats that come towards me. I'm not going to be scared away. And I won't back down, and I won't take my post down, and I won't bury myself and erase myself because they want to post bad things about me. But what really is needed right now is for people to stand up with people like me. Because we're a small group. And without people standing with us, we're not going to make it. There's going to be at least 3 anti-trans ballot initiatives this year coming on the ballot. One of them to ban health care for trans youth, one of them to ban sports, trans women in sports, and the other one is to notify any parent that there's any kind of gender incongruence. So it's kind of like a tattletale bill. And we had this debate on the floor of the House where we talk about parental rights a lot. And I think parental rights are a really good thing. But there are some times when parents are actually the problem. And that's why we have a court system devoted to people losing their parental rights. There are parents that are not doing the right things, and we have to make sure that we're balancing the people who are doing the right things with the people who are not. And it's a really tricky balance to do. But if a kid is trans and wants to be out at school or anything like that because they're afraid to do it at home, and then you tattle on them and you tell parents, those kids could be beaten. It may cause them to want to commit, act on the suicide. There's a lot of things that can happen to those kids, and that's why the bill we had recently on just using a name that they accept in school to be the name that they choose is really important, because they have that safe place at least to do it there, if anything. But it's a really nuanced issue, and you probably want me to wrap up here pretty soon because I've gone on for a while. But it's a tricky issue. I don't expect you all to understand all this stuff, but I'll be happy to take any questions that you have, so that way you can get a better understanding and see if there's anything that you are dying to know from someone like me.
Thank you so much. We have a bit of time. Respect your time, respect all of our time. 1 or 2 burning questions? Bob?
Do you live in Arvada?
That was a really easy one. The question is, do I live in Arvada? Yes, I do. I live over on the west side of Arvada, in Candelas.
And have you ever had any threats? And if you have the Arvada police been responsive to where you felt safe?
I have not had a direct threat. You know, what people are really good at is threatening without doing a real threat. And people are good at choosing the words that they choose to try to intimidate. And I have reported a lot of those to State Patrol, and they have followed up on them. But nothing has been done about it. No one has actually physically threatened me. But I'm pretty vigilant about all the things that I do to make sure that I'm not in spaces, and I have cameras around my house and stuff like that, just to try to deter people from wanting to do things. It's not like an active threatening situation, but it's always a fear that with all of this stuff kind of just escalating, at some point somebody's going to act on that, and you just never know when that might be. Anybody have anything? Yeah.
The ballot issues you were speaking of, those are state issues?
Yes. Yeah. One of them is, I think one of them is a constitutional question, and the other ones are just statutory. Yeah.
Do you know which representatives brought those bills to the floor?
Well, those were not brought in the House. These are being done through the ballot process outside, so they need to get petitions signed.
Oh.
So if these do get to that point of getting petitions, and you see people asking for petitions, they have to do it all over and get a certain number in every jurisdiction. decline to sign, is what I'm asking people to do.
Could we sign and make it invalid?
I guess you could. I guess you could do that. But not having a signature on there is a good thing.
No,
too.
I'm just being
Yeah,
smart.
I do.
Was it difficult for you to come to speak to us, or how did you feel when you were invited?
No, I felt pretty good. Molly invited me, and Molly and I have a good rapport, and I wouldn't expect her to bring me into a situation where I was the lamb to the wolves. So I didn't expect that kind of situation. So.
What makes you feel safe and welcomed coming into a new space?
Well, if I see a pride flag someplace, that's always a good sign. When I see that, someone put the effort to put that there for people to see it, so they know. They don't have to worry about it. And then also, knowing who the people are who are associated with this, I wouldn't think that, Molly would be in a place where people would want to come after me and have a bad opinion. But, I don't take anything for granted. I mean, just because you're here in a welcoming, open space that is accepting, you may still have some ideas that have been, you might have, seen that misinformation and I'm always here to try to help you understand it, any of you. If you're not comfortable asking me about it here, we can always meet up for coffee, or I have a coffee and a beer event every month, so you can come visit. You don't even have to drink a beer if you don't want to. They always have a soft drink or something. But it's just an opportunity for people to get to sit with me and understand a little bit more about me as a person, because a lot of places, I have to talk about the things that I have to talk about, but I'm happy to open up about my personal life. I've opened up about it a lot in a lot of different interviews already, so my life's pretty much an open book.
One more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you ever belong to a faith community yourself?
I grew up as Catholic when I was a kid, and I just didn't really, attach onto it, and my family didn't really do it that much. My wife is Jewish, and I go along with her to a lot of those events. But I'm more of a spiritual person. I really think that, and I have a degree in physics, so it's like that the universe and matter and energy, and like that's kind of where I feel like all of the stuff that we don't understand is kind of in that stuff we don't understand. And I think that, and I'm not really a religious person, and I don't say anything to disparage anybody's beliefs about anything, but for my belief is more of that science-based quantum physics universe. And it's such a fascinating thing, all of the different things about the universe and the place we live, and it's just so complicated, and that's where my mind kind of gets into that spiritual space. But
I just want to thank you. Representative Tatone, we've worked on legislation together. I think of you just as a woman, not even as a trans woman. I mean, and because of your courage, I have the courage to stand alongside of you to advocate for legislation that's not really favored by a lot of people in my industry. HOAs, the gift that keeps on giving. But anyhow, it's because of your courage that I am proud to stand beside you, and thank you for coming today. From the bottom of
Representative Tatone, I imagine Molly told you we've been going through a process and listening to one another and to the spirit in amongst us of asking the question, Will we become a believe out loud community, intentionally being a welcoming community for queer people and a safe space for queer people, and to stand in solidarity? And we're in the midst of asking the question of ourselves, and have gotten a lot of information over recent weeks, and so you've been a wonderful capstone to the unveiling of what we have been doing, because we are aware, and I'm sure you, unfortunately, I'm sure, hear too many stories of young people and adults who don't have safe spaces. And so can keep us in mind as we finish our process of thinking about this. We have a quote in our handout today from Martin Luther King about building the beloved community, and that is what we are striving to do, of thinking how can we be, as a church community, be a part of building a beloved community here in Arvada. So I echo Molly and thank you.
One other thing I'll just say, I don't personally belong to a faith-based community, but I know there's a lot of queer people that do. And because it is hard for a lot of queer people to find community, especially in areas that are not quite as diverse as the metro area might be. In rural communities, it's really hard, and sometimes those faith-based communities can be hostile. So when there is an openness and a willingness to be open to the queer community, it really helps with a lot of the mental health and feeling. I mean, when you belong to a community like that, there's nothing better than that. That's what we strive for. And having your arms wide open to everyone, especially those who need it the most, I mean, I think that's probably the most, the best thing you could probably do as a faith-based community is to accept those who are in need. And I'll tell you, the trans community in particular is very in need, just because we don't have a lot of these bad laws happening here. What state can I not travel through on my trip? I mean, these are things that stress people out, just knowing that. And knowing that, if the federal government goes a certain way, then are my rights preserved? Are my rights going to stand? These are things that people worry about, and that stress really wears on people. So just wanted to throw that out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question.
I just want to say I'm really proud of us as a church for going through this process, for opening ourselves up to hearing the stories and information from different individuals. And I think not only are we educating ourselves, but by taking in new information, we then become leaven out in the community with our extended families in other parts of the country, just because our attitudes are starting to shift or be more informed, and we'll be advocating in different ways with our loved ones who may live in these rural areas or places where they don't have access to this type of information. So good job, everybody, and I'm so glad that we've taken this time to expose ourselves to these things.
And you can come back next week too and just be in the service. Yeah, we're here every Sunday. You can be too.
But we will not force you to do that.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Holy and gracious God, bless us out of this space as we return to the normal patterns of our days. Be with us, strengthen us, give us courage. Bless Brianna as she goes into the many spaces where she feels vulnerable. And bless each of us as we do the same. And bless us in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.